This is my great grandma. She is gonna turn 100 in 2 days or 3 days.
3 more days.
3 days. So I'm gonna ask her some questions about her life and the stuff she's been through in those 100 years. What was the Great Depression like for you?
Oh, well, I was born into it, so I was sort of, wasn't that bad. I didn't know better, but it wasn't easy to get things the way you get them today. We had one pair of shoes that we didn't get another pair until we wore out the ones we had. And the holidays would be one uniform. Christmas, if we got one toy, it was a lot. And then when the war was going on, we had to use stamps for anything we needed, bare necessities. As I said before, if I wanted to buy needed an appliance, we had to wait until after the war was over. Then we could buy it. And food, when it came to food or gasoline was 3 gallons for $1. But we needed stamps, and we were only allowed so much per month. I didn't have a telephone in my house until I was 18. We walked. We didn't have cars. We walked to wherever we had to go, or we took the train if we were lucky that we were close to it, or a trolley. Some things used to be delivered to us. We had no refrigerators. We had ice boxes. The man would come and bring you a piece of ice and put it in this box, and it would hold up for a certain number of days. And then he'd come back again, and that's the only way we could keep our food. And we had food only during the growing seasons, not like today. You could have strawberries at Christmas, no such thing.
What impact did the Great Depression have on your life now? What lasting impressions?
I think it taught me the value of anything, any luxury we wanted. We just couldn't say, I want it and go get it. We had to work and save money towards it before we got it. And that, I think, has taught me to date the value of whatever I have. Now, during the Depression, and then the war, of course, we couldn't buy or get anything if we didn't have stamps. Food was with stamps, fuel was with stamps, gasoline, anything you wanted, you needed stamps before you could get it. And then it was allotted a certain amount depending on the size of the family.
How did World War II affect your life other than the stamps and stuff like that? Like, how did it affect your family?
Well, actually it started slowly, but it was a big change. The war really slowly but surely had changed the way we lived. We were able to indulge in luxuries we never thought we could have had before. We had a lot of work available for the men. They earned, and so it filled in a lot of missing parts of our life, into our life. Then we had to learn to live differently. Would come the television and come the airplanes, and then the housing would sell together different. We lived in a tenement before. Slowly we were able to save money and towards buying a house. Finally we got around buying a house. We moved out into the suburbs, away from the city life. And then it continued. Where were we?
Tenements.
How many families?
In the tenements, so some were bigger, some was less. But the one I like, for instance, the where I lived in, was a 20-family house, 20-family house. The apartments were 3-room apartments. You had the no bathroom. You had the facilities in a little corner in the kitchen. We had no gas. We had no electricity. We had to get putting a quarter in a box to get 25 cents worth of electricity. When we used that up, we had to go and put another quarter in. We had a coal stove in the kitchen for heat. I had a folding bed. My mother would open it out at night and close it up in the mornings. And we'd cover it up, and it didn't look like it was a folding bed. That's what I slept in all my childhood days.
Good.
At that time, the rent was, I forgot now, $8 a month.
Was that a lot at the time?
If you earned $15, $20 a week, that was a lot. That was a good salary. Pennies were worth pennies at that time. Not like today. We paid by counting our pennies. We would start with pennies, and then we'd go to nickels.
Good.
When we needed food, we had to go shopping. You'd go out in the street. There would be push carts, each one displaying certain kind of a vegetable or a fruit, and you picked and you bought from these push carts the vegetables. Then you had a place where they baked bread and made bread. The bread was 10 cents a loaf. And if you made your own, most of the time they made homemade bread, which would keep for a whole week. They would make the bread, all the work, and then they would go to the baker and have him, and he baked it for them for a fee, for a certain amount, and bake the bread for them, and they get it back, and it'd be good for a whole week. And that bread was really good. Delicious. And then when you needed meat, you went to the butcher. And every time you went to these places, you took your turn, because it would be only one person serving each customer. And the meat was soup meat was 25 cents a pound. And he got me music lessons. He wanted me to be a piano teacher. I wanted to play the jazzy songs instead. So that went. 17 jobs to start getting scarce. And I couldn't get a job in the sewing, in the dressmaking line. So the only way my aunt, is it taken? My aunt had a good job with a certain dress house. And she asked the manager there if I could go, and I would do it for nothing. She did that, so she got me into the shop. Once she got me in the shop, I proved how capable I was, and they stopped paying me on their own. But I did. So from there on in, I kept advancing myself, and each time I'd go for one thing, and I pushed myself up to another. Finally, I got to work with the designer, so that helped me a lot. So, and then in the Depression, I remember I was bringing home a salary. My boyfriend was without work. I started keeping company. And I was 18. We didn't get married until I was 23. 5 years we kept company because we couldn't afford to get married. We needed the money for the essentials to start a home, start a family. Yeah. I had a little dog. It was the cutest little thing, but it was, well, a beautiful dog. You know, we got things from Germany. They were well done. But of course, I had nothing else. So my mother did some sewing. We mended our shoes, our socks. Whenever our socks got a hole or something, we mended them till they hurt. Then we stopped wearing them. So, and clothes were, if they had holes, they would be patched up also. So patches that couldn't be used, I would use to make dolls' clothes or dresses, or dress up her fancy bed, which was a shoebox, an empty shoebox. I dressed it up, and that was her furniture. And I went around with that many a time. Yeah. Then when I started working in the stores, I got more self-respect or self-interest, whatever you want to call it. I started going to the stores by myself. I would go into Macy's and just looking around in the store, the Macy's there on 34th Street, that's where I worked, and I was always in there every lunch day. At lunchtime when I worked, I would go there, and if I could buy one article or one thing, I was in my glory. Finally, when I became 18, I insisted. I wanted to learn how to drive. So my father bought me a car, because he had saved all my earnings. He never took the money that I earned. He kept and put it aside for me. So he figured I had the money to buy a car. So he bought me a car, and I learned how to drive. And I'm telling you, the first week I received my driver's license, the whole family, we packed up into the car, and we went to Connecticut.
Road trip.
I wondered it was going to take tennis lessons.
So,
I loved tennis. I had bought everything that was needed for a learner, and I had to go a good distance in the neighborhood, but to play tennis. And I started keeping company. That was the end of it.
Grandpa.
That was the end of it.
How much was the car?
A Nash, $1,000. That was a lot of money. That was a good car. Yeah.
When you got married. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to get married. Oh. So my father happened to know a good good friend of his who owned a furniture factory. So we brought us there, and we picked out furniture, nice furniture. So $250. No, wait. Hey, I know, but it must have been 100. Yeah, 200, sure. If $30 a week, right? 200 is a lot, right? I had a beautiful, because he gave a special to me, bedroom. That furniture can be replaced. I could kick kitchen, a living room, and a kitchen set, which would be the plastic chair, 4 chairs, and a white and black chair table with the little red trimming. And That was, I think, $250. That was a lot of money, and it took us 5 years to save that. Imagine. And then we had the reception, of course. There comes a thing, you can invite so many, one side and the other one, because we had to watch how many people we invited. It was expensive. I think it was $2. It was at Gajulu's, who today is still Gajulu. It's still there in Coney Island. His son is, or his grandson is on TV. He's the caster, the newscaster.
Mm-hmm.
So we picked a beautiful place, and of course we went to pick the menu we had. I wanted to know. I'm getting mixed up with today's things now. I don't want to lie, but we had antipasto. We didn't have like cocktail hour. We had the antipasto, was what Grandma makes, all that. Then after that, we had soup. After soup, we had macaroni, some kind of macaroni. I forgot that part. Then we had the whole lobster per person. A whole lobster per person. It was delicious. And we had the dessert and the wedding cake and whatnot. Yes, so it was a tour. And in that time they didn't have weddings, catered weddings. They used to have, I forgot what they called them. Oh, I think your father could always talk about it. They had one big room and they invited everybody, old and young, and everybody was at the party. I forgot. There's a name for it. I was one of the first to have it catered within our class and group of people. On the honeymoon, we went to Florida. Because didn't have to worry about work. He had no work. He wasn't losing any money. So we took a month vacation. We stopped in Washington. He had relatives there. We were supposed to go during the cherry blossom time. It was May. Instead, we were late. They had already bloomed. And we stopped at his relative's house, and that was the end of me seeing the public spots. All I saw was there in his relative's house. Then we went to Florida, all the way we saw the St. Augustine. We stayed when the new bridge was beautiful. Now I look at it, it was snow white. It had just been built. St. Augustine, and we had the room on what's the Pennsylvania area that they talked the president, where we stopped in Washington. We could look out at the Capitol to bring home little gifts for the family. While we were sleeping one night there in Washington, they broke in and took everything. They took all my shoes, all my clothes. I had to go buy another pair of shoes because I was going to a cocktail party with his relatives.